My hair is getting entirely too long. Look at that. It's almost to my shoulders now. It's unruly. I cannot rule it. That's what unruly means, right? You cannot rule it.
Yeah, exactly. I've been liking the unruliness, the ponytail, the crazy cartoon ponytail's been good.
I forgot how much ponytails make my head hurt.
Yeah.
Because my hair weighs a lot.
Your hair
is
extremely thick.
Hanging a 2-pound weight on the back of your head all day.
Yeah.
Well, I'm bringing the energy for this podcast tonight after taking a 2-hour nap this afternoon.
Yeah.
Because it was a long weekend.
Yeah, we'll get into that, but it was quite the weekend for you and quite the week for us. And
you're sounding a little congested.
Yeah, I'm sounding a little congested because I got pretty sick this past week.
Not COVID, we took a test.
Not COVID, but heck of a head cold kind of thing.
Yeah.
Chest congestion.
You were speaking very low.
Oh, I was Tom Waits in the morning. I was just scared of, like, I was just like foghorn. And it was so weird too because right after our showcase we talked about last podcast, Sunday, and Monday, I just almost couldn't drag myself out of bed. I just felt so tired, and I was like, that's weird. Like, the showcases are tiring and stuff, but I was just like, I shouldn't be this tired. Mm-hmm. And then by Wednesday, I felt, like something's happening. And then Thursday and Friday, I was just, and Saturday.
Yeah, through the gigs.
Through the gigs, I was just, man, it hit me pretty hard.
I'm glad you're feeling better now.
Yeah.
Or at least on the mend.
No, I'm definitely on the mend. I have that, like, I woke up today feeling like I still don't feel good, but I feel night and day better than I did yesterday. That weird thing that you get sometimes when you're sick and you sort of forget what feeling good feels like. And then when it comes back, you're like, oh yeah, wow.
It's uplifting to be healthy.
I felt pretty bad.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, so that was, my week. I mean, kind of grinding through stuff still as far as mixing, like we talked about.
Those 5 albums.
Yeah. And although I mentioned to you, it's interesting because it's such a head cold, and it's that weird thing where you hear like weird stuff going on in your head, and I could definitely tell my hearing is impacted.
Ooh, how do you mix when you have partially plugged ears?
I've been moving forward with mainly a lot of mix prep. So let's get this up to, let's do all the detail work and get this up to 95%, and then knowing I can't do that last 5% when I can't really hear right now.
Yeah, everything's a little muted, I would think. Like the highs are probably dampened.
Yeah, and just sort of it just doesn't feel the same, and you've got all this other stuff in your head kind of.
Feel the same. So you mix partly by how it feels?
I mix a lot by how it feels.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it on the last podcast when you're talking about nerding out about audio gear, and you go like,
yeah,
that seems like this mic or this compressor or this mic pre or this console. A lot of that is like feel.
When you said feel, I didn't think you meant physical feel.
It's sort of how it feels when you hear it.
Huh.
And to me, I know not all. Some people are very analytical listeners, and I have a little bit of that, but a lot of it's just like I get a sensation when I hear something, and then when I hear it again, I'm like, oh, well, that's clearly a.
You have like perfect pitch for DAWs
or something. Yeah,
digital audio workstations.
Well, it's
DAWs.
true with like guitars and basses and stuff. It's just when you hear like a certain amp, it's like,
oh, okay,
you can do the critical listening of going like, well, it's got this mid-range bite right in this area and this kind of thing, and it's got a little bit of hole in the frequency response, so that's probably XYZ amp.
Okay.
Or you just kind of have that feeling of you've played through a Fender, you've played through a Marshall. When you hear it again, you just kind of are like, yeah, that's probably a Marshall.
That speaks to the amount of experience you have.
It's funny, I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
It's just how
because you have experienced all of these things enough times that you're not listening, you are just like instantly connecting like that deep knowledge.
Yeah, it just raises the right hairs on the back of your neck, and you're like, oh, that's probably a Vox, like,
yeah,
or whatever it is. So anyway, that was my tale of woe this week. But you had, I mean, we both had a big week.
And this kind of I feel like we've got a little bit of a break now, which is nice. But March was crazy.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I'm seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm out in the light now. So I started out my Friday with going down to down to Parker,
Right.
which we mentioned in the last podcast. Hi, Parker. We went down to Parker. I did to go to the Wild Goose Saloon. Yeah.
I always mix those up. Yeah.
Yeah, not Goose Town, but the Wild Goose, which it's a pretty sizable place. It's like a bar. It's not a grill. It's just a bar. Like
Yeah.
I guess they have a little bit of food, but so a lot of tributes play there. I know that they have open mics and they have
Big
all kinds of
stage.
stuff. Big stage, big lights.
Yeah.
And so I went to see Those Crazy Nights, a Journey tribute that I worked with recently, just because I'd never actually seen them perform live. And so I wanted to go support and check them out. The place was packed, beyond packed. Like it was body to body. It was hard to move through the room, which is not my cup of tea. But
No.
I found a way to get around the back of the room, and I made my way all the way over to the other side of the room, and I found a little spot in front of a door that had to keep opening and closing, but at least it was my spot.
Right.
But good for them, the crowd they drew. Oh my gosh. It was such a
Those
such
guys
a great
draw
night.
amazingly well.
Yeah, they sure do. And I want to compliment them on overcoming a challenge at the very beginning of the show.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that was crazy.
Huge one. So they started off with a great opening song, the Final Countdown, the one that goes do 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 do. You know, so it starts off epically, and about halfway through the song, the power to the stage blew. They blew a breaker, and for like 3 or 4 minutes, they tried to keep it going. The drummer was just like going crazy. The front people were up there getting people clapping and cheering. The whole room was cheering for them. Like everybody was so on their side, and they kept it going, and the drummer was taking solos, and they're like singing without amplification. And finally, after about 5 minutes of it, they're like, okay, I guess this isn't gonna get fixed right now. So the show stopped for about 10 minutes, and everything
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But the crowd was just partying and having a great time. I mean, the vibe in the room was not damaged, which speaks really highly of that band.
That speaks really highly.
Yeah. And so they got it figured out about 15 minutes after start time and restarted the show from the top and played and performed as if nothing had happened. Maybe even better than if nothing had happened. Like they brought 110% to that performance.
That's a great example too of if you have the right attitude about a problem.
Yes.
The crowd's going to be even more on your side about it because
Yeah.
they're like seeing that you're handling it with some grace. Or we talk
Yeah.
about like recognize the problem, address the problem,
Right.
don't apologize.
Right.
Address, don't apologize.
Right. And at least for the first 5 minutes or so, they addressed it with optimism and energy.
And that's so great. I told, gosh, that would be terrible for edits. So hopefully I haven't told, have I told the Cleveland 3 Doors Down lights going out story on this podcast?
No, I don't think you have. You
Okay.
need to tell that story.
I'll tell that story right now
Oh
briefly.
my God. That's such a good one.
Speaking of power going out, we were opening for the band 3 Doors Down, who huge band, and still out there doing it.
And what was the size of the venue?
This was an outdoor amphitheater, what we used to call sheds, because there would be the big sloping grassy area.
Oh, yeah.
And then there would be a covered stage,
Yeah.
right? So they were called sheds. And we played, a ton of those. And there were about 10,000 people there. And I said Cleveland. I don't know. It was somewhere in the Midwest. But apparently what happened, so we did our set. Everything was good. 3 Doors goes on. They get just a little bit into their set and the power goes out. And apparently what happened is the power went out to that entire section of the city. Just one of those crazy things.
Mhm.
But you had 10,000 people in this outdoor amphitheater. And so,
Was it night?
It was at night.
Yeah.
By then it was 9 o'clock maybe.
Okay.
And you have the big sloping grass bowl,
Mm-hmm.
where everybody was like spread out. And then at the top of the bowl, also looking down on the stage, was where all the vendors and, food and drinks and whatever. And the merch booth, the t-shirts and stuff, And so we had done our set, and then the band had gone on. So we went up and we were working merch, and we're standing outside of the merch booth. Was this little maybe 8x10 wooden building thing with the counter that comes down.
Oh,
like
yeah,
you can
yeah.
imagine,
Yeah.
like when they close it up, the whole counter comes back up and that closes the thing. And
Yeah.
and it's where all the t-shirts were, and we would usually go out and work the merch booth after shows, sign autographs, whatever. That's where people would congregate. And so all the lights go out and people start, like, it's calm for like a minute, and then the the rowdies and stuff start zipping around, and you start hearing random screams in the distance, and you start hearing some crashes.
Oh my.
And like things were not looking great, to the point that we were standing there talking to, like, I don't remember exactly, but it was maybe 8 or 10, maybe not that many, maybe 6 or 8 fans and girls, and we like were loading them over the counter into the merch booth, because we were like, if this goes off,
it's gonna be a riot.
Like it's gonna be a riot. Like pull the thing up. Like it's because we were like feeling very much like this is
the energy of a crowd can be like a natural disaster.
And there were and people would like suddenly like run by, like just a random dude just like full on running somewhere. And like I said, you were hearing stuff, like people were like realizing like all the lights were out so they could jump into the booths where the alcohol was. You know what I mean? Like not everybody. No, it didn't go nuts, but like the rowdies were starting to take advantage. Like,
oh my gosh.
And this was about 5-ish minutes in. And like I said, we were like pushing these teenagers into the booth, and we're like, if this goes nuts, fucking pull the thing up and get on the floor. Like, we don't know what's gonna happen, And what did happen is that Brad, the lead singer of Three Doors Down, and an amazing sound guy, stage tech guy. I wish I remembered his real name, but his nickname was Panda. Amazingly, one of those guys who's like on it. And they found some sort of battery operated, like a keyboard amp or a something. And Brad went out in front of the crowd with this like dimed out so that it was like distorting karaoke battery system thing. And then Panda's like out on a chair with a flashlight, shining a light on him like it's a spotlight, but it's just Panda standing on a chair, like shining a flashlight in his face. So that it was lights on him. And Brad like starts in and just took control of the crowd. He was just like, gosh. Guys, like, this is a problem, blah, blah, blah. And I think they were like slowly bringing up stuff because you could start to hear him better and better. So I think they were finding like other stuff to plug him into. Oh. And he spent, I bet, about 45 minutes leading this crowd of 8 to 10,000 people or whatever it is through a cappella renditions of Three Doors songs. Oh my gosh. And then they would get done with something and he would be like, what do you guys want to do? And they would be like, whatever, Loser. And he was like, well, we just did Loser. And they'd be like, Loser. And he'd be like, all right, we're going to do it again, guys. And he was like counting people into the choruses. He was like, here comes the chorus, guys. 1, 2. My God. And he just stood out there with Panda holding a flashlight over his head for like, and saved the day. Like, it turned back into a show, and it actually turned into like a cooler show. And we like figured out really quickly that like things were like, and people were like drifting back because everybody was like headed for the doors and stuff. And that was part of what was freaking us out, is the whole merch area at the top was like filling up rapidly. And it was like, this is getting, who knows how, and people started filtering back down because they could figure out something was going on. And he was like leading this huge crowd in these like a cappella sing-alongs of the songs they came to see anyway. Yeah. And it turned into like maybe a way better show than it was that way, because it was just like...
What a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
A once-in-a-lifetime experience. And I've had... Very rarely have I had more respect for a performer, because he took control and just made it this amazing thing, and just
That's crazy.
Was a ringleader for that crowd, and just and some performers would have been like, screw this, I'm bailing. They could, when they figure it out, whatever, and just would have left everybody to their own devices. But he went the other way with it. He was like, no, I got it. Like,
I'm so impressed.
I mean, it was unbelievable.
I have to know, did the power come back up, or did the show just have to end?
I don't remember that it did. It definitely did not come up before the show was over.
Wow.
Like, it may have come up like towards the end, but they didn't start playing. To my recollection, they did not start playing as a band again at all.
Wow.
And so it was shorter and it let out easier. And maybe lights were kind of back as people were leaving, but like, it was definitely, it was a heck of it. And then we like pulled those kids out of the merch booth and walked down and watched them do it. You know, like we were like, all right, it's cool. I guess it's fine. So like, come on out.
Ooh.
And the ladies working the merch booth were all like, no, let's shut the thing up. Come down and watch. You know, like,
I love that story.
It was such a man. It's just, it goes to show the power of performance, and the power of being willing to lead an audience, and the power of also just being in service to the audience. You know, I mean, there's an element of that really is in there, of just like, you know, I'm gonna make sure this is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of lessons to be pulled out of that.
A lot of lessons, but that's a great power going down story.
Yeah.
We thought, I can tell a little dramatically, but at the same time, there was a minute or two there where we were like, we might be in a lot of trouble here.
Yeah.
We were like, yeah. And it turned out to be an amazing night. It was a heck of a thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, it sounds like those guys also pulled it out.
Yeah, those crazy nights.
And man, that takes so much poise too, because stuff does happen. It happened to us a few years ago with the Petty Nicks.
Yeah, there was one gig we had 2 summers ago where the power went out every time we got really loud and intense.
Every time we got to a crescendo in the show, the power would cut.
Yeah, not just when we were loud, but like at the most crescendo moments where I would be just belting my heart out, and like everybody's playing at their best, and then that was when the power would go.
Yeah, and we had to just, you know, it takes a lot of poise to go like, all right, you know, we got to jump right back up there.
Yeah.
That's the one I praised. I did talk about it, I'm sure. Julian was the one who was like, I'm gonna...
I remember we talked about this on the podcast.
Yeah, it was really... Yeah, but gosh, what a crazy thing.
Yeah, so that was my Friday night, and then Saturday we went up to Loveland.
Right.
To play a show with the Petty Nicks Experience at the Rialto Theater. What is it, 500? You were saying it's 500.
It's about 5.
It didn't seem that big to me.
It really doesn't. I don't know if it's 4.
Okay.
Whatever it is. You know, but it's a big room, so people are spread out, and there's a balcony and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
I forgot about the balcony. That's probably a third of it at least.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
You know, one of my favorite theaters. I love those theater shows.
Yeah.
You know?
Great staff.
It's less dancey. It's more of a sit-down experience, which we talked about a little bit. Calibrated a few things a little differently, maybe, because it was a little more sit-down.
Yeah. Well, we talked about my banter on the way up.
Exactly.
So I feel like I've been phoning it in with my stage talk the last 2 or 3 shows, because I feel like I'd had it under control. Like I knew about what I was going to say, and I also knew that I could wing it enough to put a new twist on my old story every single time. And I hadn't seen that happen the last 2 or 3 times. So you and I talked some song intro ideas on the way up there, and they were good and perfect for a theater audience too. But I was really happy with that part of my performance.
Well, and you planned it that way that, you know, a sit-down crowd is going to have a little more time to listen.
Yeah.
At least in theory. That sounds like some sort of blanket thing. But at least in theory, a sit-down theater crowd, they're comfortable chairs. It's super swanky, nice theater.
Yeah.
They're going to have a little more time to listen to banter, whereas more of a dancey crowd, they don't want to listen to a story. Yeah. They want to get back to dancing. But yeah, the talking points just landed big time.
Yeah. We used the formula again.
Used the formula?
Overarching theme, what it means to me, why it's important right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and I thought you were, you know, while I was sitting in the car, as much as we discussed all these things, you've gotten to that next level of being able to, like, you can just go out with the bones of it and wing it. And it's even better because you're really speaking from the heart in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sort of modifying it, leaving those spaces for you to like talk about really how it feels right this second.
And you know what? That lets me feel a little more flow in the sense of that timeless, like outside time, like peak performance sensation. If I'm not, trying to hit the exact phrases I planned, or I don't plan exact phrases anymore, but if I have the skeleton of the story in my head, I have the feeling of it.
Right.
And so then I can be in the moment with that audience, for real with myself in that moment, and kind of just feed off of whatever is real to me at that moment. And that it keeps you so here in the now that it's even a more fun experience for me.
Right.
And it's probably, it's much more real.
Well, I thought even there was a time where you were like searching for a word or something.
Yeah.
And it made it, I think that's why it landed so hard, is that people could tell you were speaking very from the heart.
Yeah.
Off the cuff.
Yeah.
All those cliches. But yeah, the talking points landed great. I thought the show in general went super great. I was surprised I didn't have that much of a problem because I was really not feeling well. Yeah. But you get in front of a crowd.
You're an expert at pushing through anything.
Yeah. Pretty good at pushing.
So anyway.
Yeah, I've had to do it. Yeah. Anyway.
I don't have much to say about it.
No, myself, I mean, it was a pretty standard show. I mean, it was the real stress for me was I've just had this head cold and I've had these explosive out of nowhere sneezes. And I was terrified that one would come out of nowhere in the middle of playing in front of all those people.
And be a big messy sneeze.
So I had all my pockets stuffed with like Kleenex and toilet paper and stuff so that if I needed to, I could like quick draw, try to like, because they've just been like coming out of nowhere. Like, that was my whole like, I was like, just like, don't sneeze.
And then you got off stage and you were just a mess.
I was really, yeah. Then it all had to,
and you were like, I think the audience can hear me. I'm so loud.
Yeah, that's right. I was on the set break. Yeah, I was like, hacking up along.
That was fun. We got, Brian's parents came.
Brian, and that was amazing.
They drove up from south of Pueblo.
And that was so nice to meet them.
Over 3 hours. Yeah, it's the first time they've seen the show, so that was really great.
Yeah, and they apparently enjoyed it. That was a great show for them to see. The sound is great. We should really, we've talked about the Rialto. We should thank, Phil is on monitors, Dan is on lights, Jared is front of house there, and we should thank all of those guys. They are consistently so professional.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's incredibly high quality sound. I know millions of people listen to this podcast, so I would recommend not just seeing us at the Rialto. If there's anything going on at the Rialto that you think you might want to see, I highly recommend that venue. It's just a great experience, and thanks to those guys mainly.
Yeah.
And one of them told me when we were leaving, I was saying, thank you. You guys are always so great. And he said, Petty Nick's Day is our favorite day of the year.
Oh my gosh.
So I was like, wow, that's.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's pretty flattering for guys that do shows full time.
Yeah.
That's their job. And they were like,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got home from that. Easy drive, but it's an hour. Got home at 12:30. I set my alarm for 4:30, and I got out of the house at 5:30 to go to a church gig for Easter.
Yeah.
So pretty standard, really. That's If you Well,
it's a long drive. Yeah.
I mean, I don't even have that much to say about it. I actually, the one thing I have to say about it is last time I did a church gig on Little Sleep, I made more mistakes than usual because I just had brain fog. Mm-hmm. And so I dialed it down. I had no goals whatsoever. I didn't even use more than like the notes that I have known where they are on the fretboard for 14 years. Like,
right.
I just like stayed in home position. I was like, I need to not tax my brain at all.
Right.
And I did fine. It was fine.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty impressive on that,
Impressive to do a church gig on 4 hours of sleep.
well, and
Pretty
feel
easy
like you
sauce.
did, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I made one mistake. There was one mistake in one of the two services. There was a song where we decided to add an extra bar, and I forgot to add it during the second service, and figured it out fairly quickly. But for a moment, I was like, we were all together, and now we're not all together. And I was like, oh, it's me.
Well, if nothing else, that quick adjustment is,
Hope it gets faster and faster.
yeah,
Anyway,
that's definitely true.
got one of those next weekend and then the weekend after that too. So I'm glad I don't also have night gigs the next 2
Right, we
weeks.
don't for the next 2 weeks. I mean, we've got some busy weekends coming up, but not for a few weeks.
Yeah.
But and then you came home and slept for.
Yeah, I got home from that after buying an IKEA couch as well for Studio One.
Yeah, that's right. You went by.
Yeah, with IKEA, because IKEA is nowhere near where we live, so
Yeah, if you're down there
I
anyway.
was
Yeah.
nearby, and we needed to get a couch that we could actually get into the studio, because we tried to move a different couch into the studio a couple weeks ago, and the shape of the doorway and the way that the room, like, you have to walk into the room and then take a left, we couldn't get the couch in. So I figured we had to get a couch that can be assembled inside the room.
Right. There's like an alcove storage area, and part of the problem is it has like loft shelving.
Yes. Yeah.
So with the way that little alcove went and then 90 degrees left into the actual studio area, we just could not figure out how to get anything.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't turn it all the way up because of the loft shelving, and it was just a whole thing. So we're gonna assemble a couch in the room. It'll be nice having a couch in there, and that'll be great.
Constant changes at Performance High.
Yeah, it's just growing. Speaking of Performance High, we're doing the home recording seminar
Right.
this weekend.
Yep, that's
this coming weekend.
your class that you've run before.
Yeah, I've been running it for quite a while. Gosh, I mean, definitely pre-pandemic, 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah, because
it's been a while.
Rachel took that class.
Yeah, she sure did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be great. I always love teaching group classes, and I, of course, love talking, recording. And I think I'm going to take a lot of the lessons we kind of continually learn about, doing a little more hands-on stuff. And, I'm just going to, I have all the materials written out, and I have for years, but I'm going to prep some examples.
Yeah.
Of just like, here, let's do this, let's do that.
Cool.
And so I think it'll be, I'm definitely looking forward to it. It's a really fun thing to do for me.
Good.
I love the group classes.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all I have to say tonight, because I am still in nap fog. 2-hour nap this afternoon.
Yeah.
Waking up at 4:30 in the afternoon. And I just been kind of stumbling around.
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll close it down for tonight, and
Our sponsor this week is the Rialto.
Gotta give it to the Rialto.
The Rialto Theater.
Great staff, wonderful people.
Although they did put me on the cover of last year's season programming.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
it was it was just me, just a photo of me as Stevie Nicks.
Yeah.
Was their program cover.
I think we have a copy of that.
Yeah, it's in the office.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we sure appreciate those guys, and of course, everywhere we get to play. We are also sponsored, as always, by Performance High.
Voice and Music Studio.
And we appreciate you guys. It's not even that short.
No, you had a long story in there.
I had a long story in there. Yeah, so you got your money's worth. What are you complaining about? What are you?
Your money's worth.
What are you complaining about?
See you next week.